Megan, please.
Andrews.
Here.
Bowden.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Hinderman. Here. Pohl.
Here.
Schrader.
Here.
White. Here. All present.
Thank you. Item 2 is proof of giving public meeting notice, Aaron.
Yep, notices were posted at both schools, sent to the Village of Dickeyville and Cuba City City Hall and members of the media on Tuesday, February 16th.
Thank you. Item 3 is public recognition, and I do believe we have one. Who is it?
We do. We have Sammy Meyer here to talk about volleyball spectators.
All right, go ahead.
Good evening. Tonight I wear many hats as the student body president, a senior student, and a senior volleyball player. I'm here with a couple students, and then I also have the support behind me of multiple students who cannot make it tonight.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I just didn't catch it.
I'm here with a couple.
The last sentence.
Oh, and I also have a couple of I have support of multiple students who were busy tonight and could not make it.
Thank you.
And we are wanting to talk about students being able to spectate at volleyball games. We know right now that the home players, team players, are allowed 4 tickets, and the away players have 2 tickets, is the policy right now. And for basketball games, there is still some empty room behind the players and some other places. Our idea is to fill the empty room safely with CCHS students. A few ideas include 20 tickets or even 15 tickets, student tickets. That can be spaced out 5 people per row and 4 rows taken up, or vice versa. To benefit each grade level, it can be up to 4 from each grade, or start off with seniors since it'll be our last chance to go to a game. Another way is adding a friend/student ticket to a player. For example, give 1 or 2 extra tickets to each player that would have to go to a student at CCHS. A third way is to have any player who has extra tickets to donate and be given to students. And we could also see how many tickets the visiting team is not using and see if that can create extra room for students to space out. This would only be for the varsity game, and some of the benefits include the students will have to follow the school and CDC guidelines for mask wearing and social distancing. Second, we aren't bringing anyone new into the school or anyone outside of the community. We would be having students who spend hours here already, most likely sitting next to someone who they sit by in a class or lunch. We are trying to give back to the students who have lost so much during this year. We believe we can give our students a chance for 1 game, and if that goes well, keep going for the rest of the home games, which is at this time only 3 games. Set X's on the bleachers, and that's where they stay, and that's where they keep their mask on properly. By giving the students a chance to attend games, they must and will follow the rules. This is my senior season, and I can't even tell you in words one of the biggest activities I was looking forward to was standing front row in the student section, teaching freshmen the cheers, and supporting our classmates on the field or court. Now that opportunity has passed, and I want to think of something that we are able to do safely. Now with my shortened season, I'm trying to make the best of what was given to me and other students a chance to spectate.
To clarify, we don't want to have a big bunch of kids huddled around each other. We would work together with people to make sure the students are spaced out and wearing their masks. We just want to be able to give the opportunity to students to watch and support the volleyball team for their shortened season.
I've talked to Ms. Wilson about this topic, but I saw on the agenda there will be a discussion about the alternate fall sports season COVID-19 related items. We would like you all to consider allowing student tickets in any way possible. I'm willing to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Does board, do you have questions for the 3 students? Not at this time. Great. You may sit then, and we will, if you want to, please stick around if you want for the discussion on that topic. It's up to you. Item 4 is consideration of the consent agenda. Are there any items A through D that the board would like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, item 5 is the administrative reports. Heather, the business manager report, please.
So in the consent agenda folder, I will be placing financial documents or any reports that I'm going to talk about. So for tonight's meeting, there were 3 documents that were in the consent agenda folder. The first one that I will be touching on tonight is the monthly cash balance. This is a new document that the district is using, and this is just going to show what our ending balance is at the end of each month. And then I did add a 3rd column to that report that is going to show you guys each month what type of federal and state aid that we get. Keep in mind that the revenue that we get from the state and the federal government, it's not equally divided over 12 months. It would be really nice if it was, but it's not. It comes in lump sums to us. So I did list out those different types of revenue on there. I also wanted to give you guys an update on the current year spending for Fund 10. At the end of January, we were 58% of the way through the fiscal year, but we have only spent 37% of our Fund 10 expenses. So we're sitting a little under budget right now, which is a good place to be at. I also wanted to provide an update on our ESSER 1 funding, which, just as a reminder, that is money that the school district received to help pay for any COVID-related expenses. So the district was allocated about $52,000 in ESSER funds, and as of the beginning of February, we have spent over $76,000. So we have overspent in that area, and we will continue to add to the overspending. The overspending of the $18,000, we are planning to move that to the ESSER 2 funding, which is why the schools that are face-to-face and that are open, it costs money to be open and to provide a safe environment for our staff and students, which is why there's another round of ESSER funding, because the government realized more money needs to be going to schools. And then I can just give you a little bit of a breakdown on where we're spending that $76,000. We've spent about $25,000 on interns, about $6,800 on hotspots that are given to students, about $17,000 on sanitizer, cleaners, disinfectant, mask, and then about $24,000 on PPE for staff, the shields and any dividers that you see in the classrooms and the lunchrooms, and then food service PPE. And that's all I have for ESSER 1 update. And then the 3rd document that you will find in the consent agenda folder is a budget timeline for 21-22. So budgets for next year have gone out to the teachers, which is a week earlier than what the budget timeline shows. And then right now I'm currently starting to work on building budgets for like the admin, athletic, building grounds, tech, and transportation. And then the first draft of the 21-22 budget will go to the budget committee in the month of May.
Is that it? then?
That's it.
All right.
Yep.
Questions of Heather?
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Yep.
Ellie, middle and high school report.
Okay, so our high school staff is reflecting on how our year is going as far as block scheduling goes. We made the transition to block scheduling because of COVID-19 to have less transitions. And so I've reached out and gotten feedback from our staff on advantages and disadvantages to block and 8-hour day schedule. We've also surveyed the sophomores and juniors because they would continue to be in our school next year. to explore the idea of possibly a different type of schedule. So just kind of giving you a heads up, that's something that we're exploring as a staff, and our curriculum leads are going to continue to talk about that. We had freshman orientation, and it was a great success. We had 64 students participate in freshman registration this year. Miss Adler has done a great job of organizing this, and Raya and Pam do such a nice job. We get to have those individual meetings with our incoming freshmen for registration, and it's so great to sit across 6 feet, of course, away from those students and their parents to help them think about their freshman year. So we had those meetings and very successful. We are preparing for upcoming state testing. And so we have the ACT coming up on March 9th, and we'll have the ACT Aspire and the Forward exams also taking place here in the spring. And again, Ms. Adler is doing an excellent job of organizing that, and Jennifer Shep is working on the Forward exam for the middle school as well. So there's a lot of background work that goes into that, and they're doing fantastic getting us ready for that. Please know for the March 9th date, we will have only the juniors here at school like we did last year for that testing day, and 9, 10, and 12 will have virtual learning that day. So that's our plan, similar to what we did last year. Mr. Derby then also is doing the ACT boot camp like he does every year for our juniors, and that's going to take place on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So we split that junior class. We have 71 juniors. We split them up into 3 groups, and he meets with them with his knowledge, being only one of 8 people in the whole nation certified in all areas of the ACT. He is going to just give little strategies to our juniors before they take that exam. I'm doing junior meetings right now as well, which I greatly enjoy, asking them what they think they want to do when they're all done with school. Just having the opportunity to talk to them one-on-one is probably definitely one of my favorite things I do in a school year, is to have those one-on-one meetings. We had our annual elementary and middle school spelling bee on Tuesday, February 9th. Our champion is Gianna Miller, and our runner-up is Ayla Nolan. And the next round is March 6th, and that takes place in Dubuque. So we're hoping that we want to wish luck, I guess, to Gianna Miller for that. She did a great job. Middle school.
Will they get to go to Dubuque, or is it a Zoom competition?
That's a good question. Do you know?
I think they go because
I-
you asked about where it's at.
You're right. I'm pretty sure they go.
Yep.
You are correct, Tina.
Yep.
Yes. So they must actually attend it. Yep. Good question. Middle school staff has been, we've been talking about ways of recognizing our students. And so we are organizing, and Ms. Rollins did a great job of this, coming up with the Cuban way again and recognizing a student for each letter for the challenge yourself, understand responsibility, be respectful, always be safe, and never give up. And so that is it's just positive energy in our building to be recognizing our kids for those aspects that we're looking for behavior every day. Other very exciting news, we have 12 students that actually advanced to the virtual regional national history day competition. And then from there, we now actually have 7 entries that are going to be going on to state in April. So very exciting for our 8th graders. And so those students that will be going on to state are Isabella Digman, Cameron Timmerman, Ella Barth, Chloe LaRue, Connor Brimmeyer, Devin Sweet, Olivia Olson, Andrew Leffelholtz, Derek Updike, and Summer Rogers. So we're very proud of our 8th graders as they are heading to state for National History Day. Our winter sports are winding down. Our wrestling team had 3 athletes go to sectionals on February 6th. Aiden Nolan, Cooper Johnson, and John Wackerhauser all participated at sectionals. And I just want to say congratulations to our whole wrestling team for their season. Girls basketball also had a good season this year. They ended their season on February 12th against Potosi Cassville. And I know they've had their individual honors come up, but we'll celebrate those at a later date for sure. Excited for that, as Bailey Lutz was Player of the Year for this fall. The boys basketball team plays Friday night in their first regional game against Parkview. So that will be here at Cuba City. And gymnastics, I know they had their conference meet on February 11th. They have sectionals coming up this weekend and state to follow. So all of those winter sports are in their postseasons and moving right along. And we are planning for our alternate spring sports at this time. So that's an adventure each day. I'm glad to say that bowling is adding a spring season this year. So Dodgeville was quarantined for a month during the fall season, and the coaches all agreed on having a spring season. So it will start on February 27th with practice, and then they will compete for 4 Sundays in March. And the schools involved in this are Southwestern, Iowa Grant, Dodgeville, and Cuba City. So they just agreed to do another season just because of Dodgeville not being able to participate in most of it. Lafayette County has actually came and requested to use our building in case of an emergency if the firehouse isn't big enough. So, and I just wanted to share that with you. I know we also offer that to St. Rose. If something happens, this is a place they could use. So we would grant Lafayette County that as well if an emergency occurred where the firehouse isn't big enough and they needed another location to be like a central space. And then I want to give a huge shout out to the Slats family for the scoreboard. It is beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to see the scoreboard in the gym, maybe walk through there on your way out because it's really nice. So a huge thank you to them. And congratulations goes out to Mr. Jerry Pettigrew on an amazing honors that he received for his basketball season last year. He was selected as the Wisconsin Boys Basketball Coach of the Year. This is through the WIAA, the Central Section Boys Basketball Coach of the Year, which includes Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And then most recently, the National Coach of the Year. And, that recognition goes to coaches that they're leading their sport, shaping their athletes, and contributing in a positive way to their community. And this definitely puts Coach Pettigrew among the most elite coaches in the country. So we recognized this at the last regular season game last week, but I also wanted to make note of it at our board meeting today. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions for us? All right, moving on. Brad, the elementary report.
Our 4K screening team has been working on preparations for 4K registration and screening for this year. Though we're unsure of what screening will actually look like this year or when it'll actually be held, the team's work to put together information online with the new 4K section on our district website. This section of the website is a work in progress and will continue to be updated with new materials, photos, and testimonials to help promote our early learner programs and locations. Currently, we have 23 kids registered for next school year, so for the 21-22 school year. And a special thanks to Tina Burkett for her knowledge and help with creating and continuing to assess the 4K section of the website. So we're excited that is progressing and moving forward. And speaking of 4K, both of our 4K groups created What I Love About School books. And I was actually invited to Country Care to read the book to their class. And it's always heartwarming to hear the things that mean the most, especially to our youngest learners. It's just really unique to see the different things that they find to be the best part of the school day. It was great to have an opportunity to visit with the students out at Country Care as well. Recently, Ron Ware with the Vista stopped by Cuba City Elementary School with a very generous donation for us to use to assist students with any needs that they may have. It was a much appreciated gift, and we're very thankful for the many community partners that we have that support our students. Ron said that they had kind of adopted a local school and decided that Cuba City Elementary School was it, and just dropped off that donation really without a whole lot of advance warning. So we were really quite surprised and really excited about it. Ms. Garrison, our PE teacher, has organized a Jump Rope for Heart event for February 26th, where students will be collecting donations for the American Heart Association and promoting healthy fitness habits through jump rope in physical education. Our students recently celebrated the 100th day of school, with several of them sharing a collection of 100 items, their thoughts on what things will be like in 100 years, and some even dressed up like they were 100 years old, which made me feel a lot younger. Special shout out to Mrs. Williams, our middle school teacher. Her son he actually shaved the top half of his head so that he had just kind of that rounded hair look. And then on the 101st day of school, he came with it completely shaved. But it was just cute to see that. And it's always an entertaining day in an elementary building, as anybody that works in one would know. Our fifth grade students recently completed some fun hands-on science experiments. So they used the properties of some different objects. They utilized corn, liquids, wood shavings, and metal shavings. And it was neat to see them using magnets, different things to identify the properties of those different materials. And a special thanks to Mr. Kopp for supplying the wood and metal shavings to our students. Ms. Audetta has recently had students engaged in learning about German-born composer George Frederick Handel. Students have learned the impact of his musical influence in not just Germany, but also England. So it's just neat to see the different things that are happening in all of our different classrooms. And then the last thing that I have is, despite the challenges of COVID, students were actually able to celebrate Valentine's Day at school. We had students bring things in advance, quarantine those things, and we're able to distribute and celebrate that event in school. And it doesn't seem like much sometimes, but it's those special school days that mean so much to our kids and help them build that connection to the elementary. And being able to do that in a safe way meant an awful lot to our students.
Thank you, Brad. Questions, board? Right, hearing none. Is there a special ed? I understand that you're working on the section. Aaron, superintendent report.
Sure. Heather talked a little bit about ESSER one funding and spending. That was what I've referred to as the CARES Act. We got around $50,000. And by the time we purchased all the things we needed to just for the cleanliness to make sure that we were able to use all the mitigation strategies to open full time, those were gone. And right now they're looking at ESSER 2 funding. About 90% of it is for sure. So we'll get roughly around $200,000 to use over the next 2 years for ESSER 2 funding. The remaining 10% right now is caught up in joint finance at the state level. We were given an allocation that was recommended, and then they said, no, they want to give preference to schools that have been in-person, face-to-face with that 10% of the allocation. So, that money that we qualify for one way or the other might go up or down. So there's two different allocations, but we're looking at around $200,000 for sure for a 2-year purchase. Just to let everybody know, one of the biggest expenses we have right now is food service. They can't wash all the plates and the utensils right now. That's not a best practice. So we use a lot of styrofoam and plastic to the tune of about $4,000 to $5,000 a month. So you wouldn't think that food service would cost that much, but that's what it's currently costing us. And we're not sure how long that's going to go on. And next September, are we going to have to do that? Or, can we go back to cleaning? That looks like a big chunk until we start breaking it down a percentage based on which parts of our school need this or that to pay for COVID related expenses. And that goes pretty quick. So I'm going to be sharing, once we have that kind of in a draft form, we'll be sharing that with our budget and finance committee meeting before we bring it to the full board and how we're going to use SAP funding. COVID-19, this week was an exciting week. We did get a notification from Hometown Pharmacy that they were notified that they can put their order in for Cuba City schools, and they did, and put their order in. Now we wait, and now we have to try to be flexible the best we can. We believe we're going to get, our Hometown Pharmacy will get the vaccines the first week in March. But we can't guarantee that. We have no past experience to look back on. John is hopeful that it can be here roughly around Wednesday, March 3rd. And he has actually volunteered to come over and set up a place here. We think we're going to use the high school wrestling room, because although the shot doesn't take long, they have to sit there and wait for 15 minutes. So we need an area that can house 15 to 20 people while they time themselves for 15 minutes. If they don't have any side effects, they can go. if they do, they have to let John know, and then he has things he has to do. So I'll be there to help with the paperwork at the beginning, and then he gives them the shot, and then we wait. He thinks he can get through our whole staff in about half a day. We're very appreciative that he's doing that, so our staff doesn't have to go out and drive, and it's going to make it easier for coverage internally as well. So those are the things that we hope. We do not know which vaccine we're going to get, whether it's Moderna or Pfizer. Hometown Pharmacy has gotten exclusively Pfizer, and then you have 5 days to use them, and so that's it. He doesn't know a lot of the answers. When we talked this week, he said, I think when we talk next Friday, I'll have better ideas. So I sent out something to staff, just let them know that this is everything that I know, now you know. So we're hopeful that that's going to be happening soon. And then some of you may have seen Governor Evers released his first biennial budget for the 21 through 23 school years. Very favorable for education, but if you've been around this before, that's not the final budget. So those are the things that he wants prioritized. There's a lot of work that has to be done before we can count any of those numbers, so I don't get too excited, but it is nice that we have a lot of pro education items in the budget. So that's everything I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Aaron? All righty, moving on to discussion items. The first one is the COVID-19 related calendar and handbook issue, Aaron.
Yep. So currently our calendar, the 21 for next year, the 21-22 calendar, we have about 1.9 extra days built in. We usually build in between 4 and 5 days extra because we had the first 3 snow days were forgiven. We make up everything past 3. Last year when we made the calendar, we just said, let's not have snow days. Let's just have those virtual. And so that's how this calendar was built in. That did lead to, at the end of each quarter, the kids get a 3-day weekend. Teachers get half day to grade, half day for PD. It did allow for us to have the full Wednesday off before Thanksgiving. We got out about 1 day sooner than a lot of area schools before Christmas. And we have a set end of school year date, which will not be extended. And we still have multiple spring breaks. So that's how we built this year. Now, moving forward, we do have a couple questions that have come up since we've done this. So we've had the opportunity that I know by 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, that Wednesday might be a rough day. So we can send kids home with everything that they need. One question that I'd like to have us discuss a little bit is, a lot of times on Friday at 10, we don't know if there's going to be a big snowstorm on Monday. And because the way the minute allocations work, grades 7 through 12, we count those minutes, and they need more minutes than grades K through 6. So my question is, on some of those days where it's a virtual learning day, but the young kids aren't prepared, they don't take their devices home, and middle school kids generally don't take their devices home, but middle school kids might be more able to operate their own device without needing parent assistance. My question is, if we have one of those on a Monday that we didn't send kids home in, would the board be comfortable with us saying virtual learning grades 6 through 12 on that day, but it's a snow day or a no school day for grades EC through 5? And the reason is we do talk a lot about equity and technological equity. If we're able to send a device home and we have hotspots available, I feel we're providing an equitable environment. We don't get a lot of people that say, hey, no matter what you do, we can't get service. Right, Tina? Mm-hmm. We're pretty good with coverage in our district. However, I am a little bit worried about those Mondays that pop up on us. And our elementary school kids do have a lot more days built in their calendar because we have one bus route. Whether you're a kindergartner or a senior, you take the same bus route. But 7th grade through 12th grade have to have more instructional minutes. So I just want to hear if you guys do we keep with that? Or are you okay with on a Monday or an unexpected inclement weather day to make that break?
What's your thoughts?
I'd be comfortable if the administration is. I mean, because the elementary school they're probably 4 or 5 days more.
Pam, is it closer to 10?
Yeah.
It's closer to 10 days over.
I think it's good.
So 612 would be able to do it even though they didn't take their device home?
I think they're more likely to be able to do that at home with a device, yes.
More likely, but we do have some middle school kids that do rely on the school technology devices. So
Right.
that would be the concern, would be some of the middle school kids that did not take it with them Friday.
How many were there?
And they generally don't take their devices home every day either. Just at ninth grade, we start.
You know how many that would affect?
Tina probably knows better than I do. I'm not 100% sure, because
Right.
each classroom teacher knows their own classroom and which ones need them, if that happens, and which ones don't. Because we had parents reply to a survey, if we have this, let Tina know if your child needs to take this device home, and then we've given those lists to the teachers. So the teachers know which kids need to take them home if they're not gonna be back the next day to school.
Do you have a good estimate, Tina?
I would say about half. Yep. Per homeroom. So. But I also think that some of those that are taking them home also have something at home. Some of them just like to have
Their own.
their own device.
Yeah.
And with a snow day, that is not, the other thing that when we created the policy around inclement weather days, that's not the same as the planned virtual weeks that we had, where we took attendance and you had to do it today, that was due today. With snow days, our inclement weather days, we've always said the kids have 48 hours to log in and do what needs to be done. So if the device doesn't work or they don't have it, they still could do it the next day at school. We don't if they're not penalized for that.
No, that's an important clarification. Thank you.
And really, we're kind of talking Mondays. I mean, not too often anymore are we hit with a surprise snowstorm within 24 hours. We usually have pretty good notification. It's just Mondays or days coming off of a break or something that concern me.
So everybody's okay with that? If need be, that 612 would go virtual and the K or pre-K or early
Yeah,
childhood
easy.
5 would go play in the snow or whatever.
On situations where we don't feel like we've been able to give notice to the teachers in time to get them kids home with things.
All right.
And then handbook issues, this was our first year going through this. So now this summer, we'll spend some time putting in our virtual learning policies into the district handbook, into the professional guidelines, and into the student handbook. So if there are any ideas that you guys want added into those handbooks about virtual, we'll probably talk about the difference virtual learning. We'll have to clarify in there, virtual learning when you have advance notice, but sometimes when you don't, for that clarification for elementary versus middle school and high school. So that's something for sure. We'll add in the 48 hours as well. But if there are any other items that you guys have that you'd like us to consider putting in the handbook, usually we do handbooks in July, but right now, while it's fresh in our head, I wanted to have that discussion.
That would be fine. Appreciate you making the change because obviously I had gotten a phone call I'd shared with you. So with regard to the fact that the current handbook says there's still 3 snow days, and why did we do virtual and not just let the kids play and call it a snow day? So.
And we did get some people that said, I'm so glad we're having a virtual learning day instead of going another day in June. So there were both. I mean, you're gonna go to school so many minutes, one way or the other. So I certainly understand both perspectives.
All righty. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to item B, discussion of the alternate fall sports season COVID-19 related items, starting with the winter document.
Yep, so we've got 3 different things I'm gonna pass on to Carrie here in a second, but the winter document is just what we use for winter sports, indoor sports. Then there's a volleyball sport, which it's kind of the same document, and Carrie made some different changes to those that are volleyball specific, because volleyball is our only indoor fall sport. And we're gonna act on the volleyball one tonight because we'll have a home game before our next meeting. For football, we won't. We'll just have a discussion about football for outdoor sports, and that document's in here as well. But football, we'll probably act on that at the next meeting because they don't have a home game. They don't have a game until that point. So I'll turn it over to Carrie, who's going to talk a little bit about all these.
And they have this document.
They have them, yep.
So this was created before we started doing activity in the winter, and really everything here, other than some time changes and just questions on still spectators, everything remains the same on protocols. Volleyball will look a little different because we have 3 levels. If the other schools have 3 levels, freshman, JV, varsity. So in essence of what happened in the winter with basketball, you know, we played JV, we cleaned, we emptied the gym, we played varsity. So that will be a little different because with the volleyball net up, the cleaning won't be the same on the floor because you can't get the floor machine under the net. We're working with custodial staff on a mopping method.
But also the teams don't switch anymore, right? So they stay on their.
Yep, you'll play on one side for the whole entire match, whatever that consists of for each level. So the cleaning and the sanitization will still happen. It will just happen at a little lighter rate when it comes to the floor. Still planning on emptying after each level. And only if you have a spectator there for a freshman, they'll stay for the freshman game. Then they will be asked to leave unless they have an athlete that's playing the next level. So we're still trying to control the flow for spectators, for home events, for our athletes, fans, family, and 2 for away at this point. Other than that, it's, you know, a different game, different length of time. It's being played with snow on the ground outside. So, you know, busing and all of that, we're still planning on, you know, we have 32 girls right now that are on the list to start practicing on Monday. That's the lowest number since I've been here. There's lots of reasons that you could put in. I mean, summer was different, interests different. It's just a smaller group of girls coming in from the freshman group when that's usually larger. And I'm sure we'll rebound from that down the road. It might make things a little more tolerable this year, just due to the fact that we've got the overlap. But everything that has been practiced so far, I think for winter sports has gone really well. I mean, it's a lot of time and energy to try to get the events to start and finish. We're all pretty tired after an event, but it's worked. And I think the consistency will trickle into next week. And as Mr. Olson said, we are scheduled to host a game the following week with our boys playing. If they win next weekend, they win this weekend. When they win this weekend and play next weekend, the chance of playing into the state weekend, we'll have to have some schedule adjustments because we won't be able to probably boot the basketball team to play a volleyball match off the floor. So I'll be working with the other schools involved with that. So the girls obviously are excited and we're ready to go next week.
And right now our conference still does say the max is 4 tickets per person for home and 2 for away.
Well, it's supposed to be that way.
Right.
Yes. There were 2 schools, you know, only 4 of the schools in the conference are playing. That's one of the situations from this fall. We are probably one of the few conferences in the state that everybody kind of went rogue. So 4 played in the fall and 4 are going to play now. Fenimore, Southwestern, Cuba City, and Riverdale. So the plan is that you play home and away, and then there's a little playoff maybe at the end of that, and then you still have dates that you can have a non-conference schedule. Well, with only 25% of the teams in the state playing volleyball starting next week, and some that aren't even back in school, so they've had to dog their seasons because their district has not allowed them to have activities being virtual, and or they're in Dane County, and Dane County they have different restrictions. We're hoping to fill some of those dates with some additional games. And that's still a work in progress because everybody's just new to the setup. And there's no state tournament or anything this spring. It will end with something. They're just not sure. The WIA has told us to sit tight because right now they're finishing up with basketball and they'll let us know. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
I did want to just have the discussion. There are some schools that do not let our fans attend their school. And we had talked about this before, but I'm going to bring it up again. If we do host Fenimore, and Fenimore does not let Cuba City fans go to their gym, we had talked before, we thought that was the right thing to do is allow parents of athletes to still come. That would be probably something that at least we could talk about. Do we want to continue to invite community members from a school district that says it's not safe enough to bring other people in here? Do we want to allow them to come?
They would get 2 tickets, correct?
That's what
Per person.
I would say. Most of the school, I would say half the schools did what we did: 4 for home, 2 for away. But some did 4 home and 0 away, and some did 0 and 0, and it was a little different. But 4 and 2 is the max, and we opted for the max. Now the state tournament is 4 and 4. We need 4 for home and 4 for visitor, and we were just about. If they would have said, you need 5, I don't know if we could have hosted. But just so you know, gym capacity wise, we did 4 and 4. I'm not suggesting that we have 4 and 4 for volleyball. I don't want 4 visitors. I think 2 is generous. And after a lot of schools have said, no, none of your fans can come, I'm trying to work past the bitterness of not being able to go to some of those. But I understand we wanted to make sure parents could go. But knowing that athletes, or that the WI tournament does say we had to have 4 and 4, and we made that work, do we want to look at volleyball and say, well, we're going to have 5 instead of 4. We're going to have 5 for home fans and 2.
So we do have flexibility because of the different season and only having 4 teams. Is that what you're saying, Aaron? Like we can change?
Well,
We don't have to change anything. on
we don't
that.
have to change anything.
And remember, the 2 schools that did have no fans through the winter sports, I shot an email out just being like, I weaved it into another message. Just, hey, have you guys decided maybe to change up your spectator policy? And both replied that they planned on it. Now, these were the athletic directors. It wasn't their superintendent saying this. So I'm sure I'll find out in the next athletic director meeting in the fall if that's happening. And it was Riverdale and Fenimore who did not have away fans, visiting fans.
Yeah, and the boys basketball team just played Fenimore last week, and we know a couple of parents, and I know the parents fought for having visiting fans, and it was the board that said no. So, and that was just last week. So I hope that you're right and that they change their mind.
I do too.
So what you're saying, Aaron, is there's 8 people that could come for every student athlete that's out there. 8 total. I should say 4 per student athlete.
Right now, we have 4 and 2, 4 for home.
But there could be 8. Could be 4 and 4.
He's mentioning the basketball, 8 total,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
The Swallow said you could have 4 for each player, home and away.
That's for playoffs. In order
That's for
to
playoffs.
This
Yep.
week, we have to provide 4 seats for each
4
roster
and 4.
member. Otherwise, you'd have to decline a hosting.
So we get 22 sets of 4 for home games. And like we play Parkview, they get 22 sets of 4 people seated together.
Right.
So we felt we could do that safely. That's the only reason I'm bringing up, do we want to move volleyball from, because the Swall said if 4 is the limit, well, they said 4 and 2, and some people still went with 0 and 0. So if we feel like we can safely fit 5 in for home and 2 for visiting,
How many players per team do we have?
Between 12 and 15 with managers.
So you'd have room to do. 5.
so it wouldn't be real different
There
than
will
the
be a
basketball.
WYA requirement for us because we don't have a playoff.
Right. I'm just talking about how many we can safely fit in there, knowing,
I think we're gonna know more when we see Friday night what it looks like and Saturday potentially.
Mhm.
Is there a possibility that, you know, to address the players, you know, question about allowing, you know, was it 20, Sam?
Yeah,
I mean, about
fine.
20 per contest? I
well,
mean,
right now, like what she was saying, students can come in. They have to get a ticket from a
from one of
family.
the athletes.
We made that change a few months ago when we took it away from family. So there are some students that come. We do not want to have a student section right now because it just adds another cohort that we would be responsible for contact tracing for. And the ADs spoke very much against having a student section in the fall, correct, Carrie?
In the fall, because it was unrestricted in some ways, they didn't know what they were getting into, and they found that students, no matter how great they weren't distancing. And anytime you pull up a link to watch a stream, you would see that. And they said that most of them went away from it this winter. What I think Sam and the girls are saying, and I know they're thinking positively with their peers, they're gonna listen and do exactly what they're told and all of that. I mean, there's probably a way to make that, at least try it for, like you said, your one game, assuming the space is still available. If you're adding a ticket or if they get to be a part of a ticket, because what Mr. Olson said is right. If they can get their hands on a ticket, students are able to come based on our protocol. And in basketball, unless they're a sibling, it didn't really happen at our gym.
And other questions?
When does football start?
Soon.
June.
Is it March 8th? Is that right?
March 8th is their first week.
Practice or?
Yes.
Huh, good luck.
So they'll have 3 weeks before their first
You
game.
didn't get the message you were supposed to go plow the field?
I haven't heard nothing. I mean, it's something that's gonna be interesting.
Oh, it'll always be interesting.
I mean, the outside part.
We're looking into places that have field turf to see if we can rent even one day a week, have access to a full field. Because there's a lot of work, depending on how the snow melts and how hard the ground is.
There's no frost right now.
Yeah. So, and that sounds good, if there's
Yeah.
no frost, but
Right.
we can't get any machinery on there to clear the snow because it'll tear it up.
Right.
So, like we might have shovels out there. It just depends on how much snows. But we are looking into alternate locations that we can practice. So I know Coach Kopp is working with our building the grounds, coming up with a lot of different ideas almost every day on, hey, what can we do?
Is there any way, I guess just to clarify kind of where we're at to address the students that spoke, is there any way for them or a process such as that if there's an athlete that doesn't or isn't going to use all 4 of their tickets, that somebody could be, notified that then these, students that wouldn't have a ticket could get that, or?
Yeah, that happens in basketball all the time. There's just parent groups, hey, I've got 2 unused tickets today. Anybody want them? And then people reply back.
I would prefer to keep the home players at 4 and somehow dole out 20 or 24 student tickets instead of expanding the home players to 5. I know it'd be a headache. I understand that.
It would be, we have a hard time getting kids to stand 6 feet apart and line up for lunch.
Well, and I get that, and maybe it's a 1-game trial and say, here's your chance.
Or it's do it until you prove you can't, and then it's taken away, or you just don't go down that road. What's your recommendation?
I would say, why don't we see what happens with basketball with 4 for it?
Well, so I think these are 2 different things. I think we have space enough to give each, to move from 4 to 5. I think we can do that safely. And keep it with 2 for the visitors. That's separate from having a lot of, like, if anybody wants to go to the volleyball game, puts their name in a bucket and we pull out 20 hats or 20 name out of the hat. That's a different thing.
Right.
Because even though we'll put them on X's and say, this is where you sit, and they'll be spread out, kids gravitate towards each other. And that's what we're trying to avoid doing. And when you're cheering, very much like singing, where they're not having live music events at sports, you're projecting a lot. And so that's what, all the ADs that did that in the fall advised against that. Our county health director advises against that. Right now, if there are high school kids that come to a basketball game, they get a ticket from a family and they sit with that family.
Mm-hmm.
So that family has to say, okay, I trust that this person is behaving. They're going to sit here with us. It's not all 20 of them are sitting together. So I have a hard time supporting having a student section based on the schools that have done it in the past, with the struggles that they have. And we have good kids, but kids gravitate towards each other. They're going to do that.
I just was trying to seek an answer to their request.
I think we can increase the number of tickets, which could, if they choose to give them to three friends that come and cheer for them, they can certainly do that.
But they'd have to sit with the family. Would be, at least they get to go.
Correct. They're
So
there.
that puts them all on this side of the gym, leaving the traditional student section still empty? Does that make sense?
Usually we put the visiting parents up there, and we try to keep the visiting parents 6 feet from, like if the varsity's playing, the JV would sit behind them, so we kind of have a team area. And then we have 6 feet of space, and then we have like the top 4 rows are for the visiting parents all the way across. But the other part is like, we don't know. Sometimes we've had games where there's 6 parents show up from the visiting school.
Right.
And it looks like there's a lot of room, but sometimes we play Randolph and they bring all 22 people that they can
We
bring.
don't know that ahead of time.
And you never know that ahead of time.
Every player has 2 kids.
We know one game's against Riverdale. They aren't bringing many.
They're pretty good.
I don't know about their girls volleyball team. I'm not sure.
And I apologize, I shouldn't say that, but that's.
Okay, it's on screen.
So at this point, it was just discussion, because I believe, if I'm correct, Aaron, under.
We do have an action item.
Under E, there's the indoor event district guidelines. That's where if there was a change, it would be made by a motion of somebody. Alrighty. Is there any other discussion on that item?
I guess I would just like to get a sense of how people would feel about increasing it to 5 for the home game. Because I feel like we were kind of talking about several different things.
Sure.
So I would be in favor of that, and then giving those families the option to make tickets available to students, if they so chose, because then it is, like you said, kind of their call to trust that student or students.
And then based on what I thought I heard, it would eliminate, I guess your biggest concern was a student section.
Correct.
And if it was operated that way and went well, you could do it with
For the
that.
To still allow
For the 3
students
games, yeah.
to come and cheer them on.
At least so, yeah. What's,
I agree with the boys.
you agree with Megan's
Yeah, I'd be all for it.
suggestion?
Yeah.
All right, I think it's a go.
Does it matter if we exceed the conference? As a conference, we said we wouldn't go more than 4.
To be quite honest,
I'm just I know a lot of other schools don't follow. what we
I'm just gonna tell you, we followed everything to the letter of the law with this fall guidelines. And I didn't feel like other schools did that. So if we feel like we can safely have more of our students or more of our kids have family there, I'm okay with that. And I don't think there's anything the other small schools are gonna do about it.
I agree.
It's a good
We're
question.
only at one, correct?
Right.
One per.
One, correct. I mean, we're not looking at a.
You know, and we have to have 4 and 4 for the tournament game, and we can do that. So the reason I'm not promoting 6 and 2 is because we have to save space for the JV or freshman teams, and we don't have to do that for the tournament. So that's why I'm not saying 6 and 2 would be safely worked out.
Thank you for that explanation.
We have to save room for like freshman team.
Yeah, they'll be behind the varsity.
No, like, because for basketball, it was just the JV and varsity. Is it gonna be a volleyball?
Well, they're cohorted as a group anyway. So.
Right, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering numbers of people, and how much space it takes.
Yeah.
We never had guest parents that went all the way across the top, very seldom.
We did a couple games we did.
A few games, but not many.
And remember, we clear out each level, so, I mean, obviously the varsity would be the bigger attendance.
And if there's a big freshman or JV team, we would use a stage, if we have to.
Was there anything regarding the outdoor events you wanted to, under that?
Oh,
discussion?
yeah, talking about outdoor events, at what point do we think, okay, if we're having 5 for indoor do we feel like there's a bigger number for outdoor events? So when we talked about this with our football, our COVID conference, superintendents, high school principals, ADs, and football coaches were all there. We thought that we could go have more people there for outdoor events than for indoor. We weren't sure exactly how to do that as far as, do we mark off the bleachers because tape doesn't, it's outside, things aren't going to last as long. Do we encourage people to, basically what we came up with is it's outdoor. So some schools say, well, we're going to require masks if you're on school property. And some are going to say, we're going to encourage wearing a mask if you can't physically distance. So if I'm over somewhere by the track, around the outside of the track, and no one's within 10 feet of me, I could take my mask off. I'm more comfortable with that because, as you guys know, we give our kids mask breaks on school property. We let them go outside, take them off, and walk for 2 or 3 minutes. So it would be hard for us to say for visitors that are coming, even if they can physically distance, that they have to wear a mask. That's my thought. But I'd like to increase the tickets per athlete or per team member for outdoor sports. Now, this is just for the alternate, because those people actually buy a ticket. Spring event's going to be a different agenda item on a different month because, they don't buy tickets and we don't monitor that. So that's separate. We're just talking football right now, but we're just I'm thinking, do we go double? Is outdoor, do we say, okay, instead of having 4, we're going to go 8? Is that feasible?
But your football squad is how much bigger than your basketball squad?
Football's a lot bigger than 10.
Yep. And so that's like, we wouldn't be able to feed everybody in the bleachers.
I think we're looking at total people, not necessarily number.
You got more players in football
Yeah.
than you do.
Yeah. Now there's going to be, this year, there won't be as many kids that are on multiple teams. Like you're either on JV or on varsity. So that might shrink the numbers of an individual night. But I know last year when we were talking about indoor versus outdoor, or last time we had that conversation, the board generally thought, well, we can have about twice as many people for outdoor. So that's what I was thinking. But it's how many tickets do we want to allow? We're not acting on football tonight because we don't have to. That's going to be next month. And do we want to allow those visiting people to come? And I'm assuming the board will go with 2 for them. So, there's a lot of space. A lot of schools said we're going to encourage people to bring their lawn chairs and sit around the outside. Sit wherever you can. Sit along the track. Sit on the hill or whatever. So those are all options that we talked about.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
As a coach, I applaud you as a board for allowing visiting fans to be here. I think it was difficult to go to Riverdale and Fenimore, not just from the lack of having anybody there to cheer for you, but the concern that if a kid were to get hurt, that their adult was not able to be there physically to take them if they needed medical care or things like that. So I applaud the fact that Cuba City is the bigger person in allowing opposing fans to be here. So I think kudos to all of you for making that decision for the winter split.
Thank you. And I guess, I wouldn't want to stoop to retaliating and having no one come, but I'd rather increase ours if we could. Alrighty, moving on, new business. Approve the WISNP purchasing cooperative membership for food service.
Yep, we do this every February. This is a food service purchasing co-op that Janet is in with about 38 other schools, and we get better pricing because we order in much larger volume.
If there's no questions, would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the WISNP purchasing cooperative membership for food service purchasing as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Paul,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White, yes, motion carried.
Approve the co-op with Benton and Southwestern for wrestling.
Yeah, for wrestling, we are the fiscal agent, which means we're the host school, and we have a form that if this approves, when we're done here, Gary, I'll have you sign. I've got to sign as well. It just continues what we've done with Southwestern and Benton for wrestling for the last few years.
If there's no questions or concerns, would someone move?
I move to approve the co-op with Benton Southwestern for wrestling as presented.
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve the co-op with Benton, Southwestern, and Darlington for gymnastics.
Yep, this is, Darlington was added a year or two ago, but we've been in this co-op for a long time. We are not the fiscal agent, so we don't have a form to sign. We just have to, Carrie will let them know that our board approved it.
Are there any concerns? Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the co-op with Benton, Southwestern, and Darlington for gymnastics as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take
I'm
your
gonna
pick.
give it to Brad. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White, motion carried.
Item D, approve the extension of the current transportation contract with Russ Stratton Busing and changes through June 30, 2023.
Yep, we met with the transportation committee meeting, or transportation committee, went through the contract. We had 3 or 4 things we wanted changed, sent that to Russ Stratton Buses. They said, yep, all those are good. And then when we had the document, there were a couple other things that I thought, okay, well, now we're changing it. We might have to have another committee meeting if they counter with something. And basically, we had 3 other things that we wanted kind of some language changes in there, and they agreed to all 3 of them. So everything that you guys were able to see in the current contract is up to date and has been approved by Russ Stratton Busing also. Along with the letter of intent, that Southwestern will end the same date as we do, that is in here as well. And John did say that next week they're gonna have a transportation committee meeting and talk about that as well.
Are there questions? Hearing none, would someone move?
I would move to approve the extension of the current transportation contract with RSB and changes through June 30th, 2023 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item E, approve the COVID Cuba City High School indoor event district guidelines.
And so I think the only thing that we kind of talked about is in going from 4 tickets per team member for home team member to 5. Carrie, was there anything else that you added, or that were they just kind of procedural
They were
things?
just times and, fans coming in at.
Yeah,
beforehand,
based on
just-
time.
yeah.
Yep. So the moving from 4 to 5 tickets.
Does that need to be added to the motion?
I would say it should be. Sure. Are you making that motion?
I'm writing
Writing it down? That's perfect.
So I will move to approve the COVID-19 CCHS home indoor event district guidelines with 5 home tickets per athlete as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried. And I just want to take a minute to thank the athletes who came tonight and spoke. I hope we give you some more flexibility while also keeping it safe and giving you a season you can be proud of.
Thank you for the good life lesson there, speaking up, so thank you. Item F, approve the sale of end-of-life technology hardware.
Yep, we have a few other things. We had sold other things maybe 3 months ago at a meeting. This one is an old CPU that we do not need to keep for parts that a staff member expressed interest in. The other one are with our new Clear Touch panels. We're taking down some Epson projectors that we think have some life in them. And TC Networks believes that they work in some schools that would purchase them for a fraction of what we purchased them for, but they still have some life. So they want to explore that option, but we need board approval to do that.
Are there questions regarding that?
I always ask if they've been checked.
The private
with St.
schools,
Louis,
yes,
private schools
they
in our
did.
district.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the sale of end-of-life technology hardware as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve the emergency extended hours for Wednesday evenings during the alternate fall sports season.
We've got a few different sports all going on during the same season, which generally doesn't happen. Carrie had asked if we could have a waiver on the Wednesday just temporarily. And I said, I'm not sure about that. And Ellie had called all three churches to see if that was okay with the leaders of their churches who gave their blessing. Carrie, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I just been so long since I've had a blessing. Yeah, this is something that I didn't want to have to deal with, but even these first 2 weeks, because we're hoping our boys are busy here the next week with practice, we have 3 levels. We have 1 week before we play. There's just not enough facility space to practice. And I don't want kids here at 5 in the morning. I also don't want kids here, after 10. So we're trying our hardest to find a way to get in that first week starting next week. But without Wednesdays, and elementary school is not available either, they have their own season going. They still have basketball going. We would not be able to do anything productive with our athletes on Wednesdays if we have to be out by 6:15 because practices are going till 5:30, 5:45. So looking for the opportunity to not abuse it, but when needed, be able to practice past that time. And with anybody that would have conflicts, I'm still somewhat confused on who does have religion, but if they do by grade level, try to work that in. It would not be a mandatory practice if they had a virtual, I assume it is virtual, right? For religion classes?
For what age? Sophomores, freshmen, sophomores.
Oh, okay.
But they're every other, so it's every other, so they said they were fine, I know, they said, I'll let you know, Karen. They said they were fine with the other grade level having practice past that time. They understood because of the conundrum we're in with having so many teams still trying to use so many with the alternate fall.
Yep. All right, sounds like a go.
That is the request.
Yep. If there's no other questions or comments, I will move to approve the emergency extended hours for Wednesday evening during the alternate fall sports season as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White, yes, motion carried.
Personnel, approve the hiring of high school football assistant coach Austin Young.
Yep, Austin is a high school bio teacher, and we're excited that he is going to be joining the staff.
If there's no questions, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the hiring of CCHS football assistant coach Austin Young as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve the hiring of high school assistant track and field coach Ellie Jones.
Yep, Ellie ran track here at Cuba City High School and is currently one of our 5th grade teachers. So we're excited that she applied for this.
If there's no questions or concerns, would someone move again?
I'll move to approve the hiring of CCHS assistant track and field coach Ellie Jones as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve the hiring of high school assistant track and field coach Rebecca Garrison.
Rebecca is one of our elementary bio teacher and an avid track and field fan. So we're excited that she applied for this position as well.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the hiring of CCHS assistant track and field coach Rebecca Garrison as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve the hiring of high school assistant volleyball coach Cassidy Portella.
All right. Coach Lawson interviewed them and so did the volleyball coach, and both of them are recommending that we approve this hire.
Whatever her name is, would somebody make a motion?
I would move to approve the hiring of CCHS assistant volleyball coach Cassidy Riportella as presented.
Is there a second?
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
I have a better than 50% chance of getting this one right. Approve the hiring of high school assistant volleyball coach Allison Jensen.
Yeah, and we all are going to approve or agree with Coach Lawson that this is the person we want to hire.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of CCHS assistant volleyball coach Allison Jensen as presented.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hindeman, yes, Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Approve the hiring of middle school seventh grade volleyball coach Shelby Skiles.
Shelby is one of our interns at the elementary school right now, and we're excited to have her continue to work with our kids.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll move to approve the hiring of CCMS seventh grade volleyball coach Shelby Skiles as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hindeman, yes, Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White. Motion carried.
We're on to committee reports. First one's budget and finance.
Yep. We'll be meeting in March, we think March 3rd, but a lot of that is dependent on when we get our estimates for next year. If we don't have them, we may have to push it off to a later date in March, but it will be in March.
What estimates do you refer to?
We get them from Baird. We
Okay.
get a
Forecast.
model.
Okay.
Yep, and that's what we go off of.
Building and grounds.
We'll be meeting March 10th, and Ben has some items that he wants to go through, and I think it's March 10th. Chuck, you sent me a text today that works.
Yeah, the 10th.
Okay.
What time?
That's probably gonna be 5:30.
Okay, curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
It's gonna be later in March and April, I believe. Right, Ms. Wilson? We're having a curriculum meeting. Is that gonna be kind of something to do with scheduling? Yep, we'll have one in March and April, and then another one later in June.
Personnel, we're having a meeting on the 10th.
March 10th? Yep.
And that's at
It'll be after the building and grounds, so probably 6:30.
6:30.
Yep.
Okay. Policy committee.
Yep, we get about 3 of these a year. I just was notified by Neola, our provider, that a new set came in. And so he and I will schedule a time to go through everything in detail. And then once we have that done, then I'll set up a policy committee meeting before we take it to the board.
Okay. Tech and transportation, we've met. Is there anything going forward with that?
Big one, got the transportation contract today.
Foundation, you met,
Yep. That's usually the only time we meet during the year.
Okay. All right. CISA 3, all the meetings have been virtual, and at this point, I don't really have anything to report. And at this point, I thank everybody for coming, as we're going to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 1985 1G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, HA versus Cuba City District. I would move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hindeman, yes,